It's good day to brew, baby. What is up, YouTube? It's your boy, Millsy. Back with Hometown Commander, back for another episode of Millsy Brews, the show where I brew version 1.0 decklist of the commander in front of us in my quest to brew the magic world. You know the motto, baby. It's ABB, always be brewing, and that's what we're back to do today. The deck list is going to be down in the description for you below. So I'd really appreciate it if you could interact with the video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that good YouTube stuff. The Discord has been popping lately, and I'd love for you to join with the link down below. But today, we're continuing on with Dragon's Week, and I thought it'd be fun to, again, continue to do some different things, not just make it or a dragon and Tiamat and Miram, and although we ever cover Miram, but I'd wanted to do some sort of Grixis dragons. I think it's a fun combination of colors, and there's some well-known dragons that are in these three colors, but I was trying to decide on who to make the commander of this. I thought about Nicobolas, but I decided to go with Goro-Goro and Satoru for, well, one real reason. That's we can make dragon tokens. Goro-Goro and Satoru is a 3/4. It says whenever one or more creatures we control that entered the battlefield this turn hit a player, we can make a 5/5 dragon token. And for 2 mana, we can give all of our creatures haste. This is a really interesting ability to me because at minimum, right, you're just giving your dragons haste. They're coming in, they're hitting the turn they come in, and they're doing that. But at maximum, we're going to find ways to get these dragons every turn, right? Just to amass that board of value as we try to win the game in the air, as most dragon decks should. I want to say a quick thank you to the channel members. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you're interested in seeing all our videos early for just $1 a month, consider checking it out down below. But all right, being in Grixis means we get access to a lot of different types of dragons and a lot of different options. We have a couple options in Rakdos colors here in a Cool and Bladewing. Bladewing's a really interesting dragon. It can come in and basically reanimate a dragon from your graveyard back to the battlefield. It's really nice, and then you can put some mana into it to buff all your dragons. Blast Furnace Hellkite's going to give all of our creatures attacking our opponents and all of the creatures that would attack one of our opponents double strike. A nice way to make sure we're really hitting hard, especially with those 5/5 tokens we make with Goro-Goro and Satoru. Gainax, whenever it or another dragon comes in, makes us a treasure. Again, works really well with Goro-Goro because it is making 5/5 dragon spirit tokens, or each of those are going to make a treasure off of Gainax. Goldlust and Goldspan, both of them are going to make make treasures on attack. Goldspan does it just by attacking, and then Goldlust Triad has Myriad and will hit our opponents. The nice thing about the Myriad here on the Goldlust Triad is that will count for Goro-Goro's ability of a creature that came in this turn, allowing us to keep getting that ability from it and making those dragon tokens. Goldspan then adds on by allowing all your treasures to sack for 2 mana, which is a really nice upside. And for all the star mounts has haste, and we still want to think about dragons that have haste so they can still attack the turn they come in. But it does have a really interesting fire breathing ability. We can pay a red to give it +1/+0, and then if its power hits 20 this way, it deals 20 damage to any target. Just a very interesting ability. I don't expect it to happen very often in this deck because it's not built to do that. But having a haste when we need it could be nice. Kolaghan gives all of our creatures +1/+0 whenever a dragon attacks. A really killer ability if we can have a board full of dragons, right, to attack. Take advantage of that buff at our opponents. Lathless is going to make us a dragon token whenever another non-token dragon comes in. So not going to trip her off Goro-Goro's first ability. But again, not a bad way to play a couple dragons and then get these dragons off of Lathless, then give them all haste with Goro-Goro, right, and get them in attacking. Meringue River region and Scavenger region, a couple of our new Omen dragons. Each of them have that Omen spell and then their regular sides. Meringue is a draw spell on its Omen side, or it comes in and bounces a couple permanents back to hand. Scavenger region is a nice one-sided board wipe on its Omen side, and then a half-decent 4/4 body on the other side. Scourge of the Throne, if it attacks for the first time each turn, if it's attacking a player with the highest life total or tied for the most life, we get an extra combat. A really nice ability to potentially sneak a combat in at the right time, just to really hurt our opponents and get all of our dragons in the air at somebody again. Scourge of Valkus is one of 2 copies of an ability in the deck we really like. Whenever it or another dragon comes in, that dragon deals X damage to any target, where X is the number of dragons we control. So the wider our board goes, the more damage, right, we're inflicting out with Valkus. Silamagar is an ability I really like, and I feel like you only needed to go off once or twice to really see how good it is. Whenever a dragon we control attacks, Creatures defending player controls get -1/-1 until end turn. But here's a board weight basically stapled on your dragons attacking and could be used really nicely to affect the whole board, or only all of you attack at one player and really affect that player. Of course, we got to play Skittles, a 4/4 with Infect that can give itself haste or regenerate itself to protect itself. Again, having Infect is nice, especially since we have some other buffs in the deck. And it can become a nice threat in the air by itself. Tear the Peaks is very similar to Scourge of Valkus in dealing out damage, except instead of dealing out damage to the number of dragons we control, it deals out damage equal to each of our creatures that comes in equal to their power to any target. Just again, getting those damage into either our opponents or their permanents and clearing some things out of the way for us. Thundermane Dragon can let us cast creature spells off the top of our library as long as they're power 4 or greater, and lets us look at the top. And if we cast a dragon off the top that way, it's going to get haste, which is really nice for some of our dragons to come in and attack right away. Twin Flame is going to double all the damage we deal to one opponent. Again, this is really nice for both combat and these damaging abilities as we're building these up into our board state. But because although Goro-Goro and Satoru is not a dragon, all the creatures in our deck are dragons, so we want to take advantage of the dragons we have. I've always liked Invasion of Tarkir. I think it's better on its backside than its front side. The front side is going to deal out some damage to a target for each dragon we reveal in our hand. And on the backside, we start doling out damage whenever a dragon attacks. Crux of Fate's a nice one-sided board wipe. Unfortunately, if we do it and Goro-Goro's out, we will lose Goro-Goro. But I think with our commander only being 3 mana, we don't mind losing it to a Crux of Fate if it means taking down the rest of the board with us and leaving our dragons alive. Crucible of Fire is going to buff all of our dragons again, right? Buffing those tokens as well. Dragon Tempest, the other copy of that Scourge of Valgus effect, but it's a lot better because it starts handing out haste to creatures with flying whenever they enter, really allowing them to come in and attack the turn they come in and deal big damage. Kindred Discovery is going to help us draw cards. Whenever a dragon comes in or attacks, we get to draw a card. Again, a great way to refill our hand, especially with Satoru's ability, right? Goro-Goro and Satoru's ability, giving us those dragon tokens whenever we fulfill it. But I think we also want to get hasty. Like, we don't want to rely on Goro-Goro's second ability to give us haste. If we can get it elsewhere, we'll like it. Things like Frostcliff Siege or Rising of the Day that are just going to give all of our creatures flat haste across the board. Remember, just giving them haste won't fulfill its top ability that they only get it if they came in this turn, but it's going to allow all the things we put in that turn to, right, fulfill that. And then Carnelian Orb is a mana rock that can give a dragon haste as long as we use its mana to cast one, which is going to be really beneficial as we ramp up. The nice part is that red mana is not required to cast a dragon. It's just a regular mana rock. But if you fulfill that, right, it gets haste. I think the last thing to remember about Satoru and Goro-Goro and Satoru is it does not care if those creatures are dragons. So if we can find ways to make temporary creatures, it can become really beneficial. My thought was something like Infantry Shield. We have a lot of really big dragons, and that means that you can start to be making 5, 6, 7 warriors each turn, and maybe trying to sneak some of them in for damage. Urbrass Forge, right, getting bigger and bigger every turn. That horror has trample and haste, so that you have a chance to maybe sneak in for some damage. I thought Corporeal Projection was pretty fun. This is a card from Ravnica Clue Edition. For 2 mana, you can give a creature you want, Myriad, which is Night Reaper Myriad. You attack a player, and you get a copy of it attacking each other opponent. Again, going to pretty easily fulfill Goro-Goro's ability, but for 7 mana, you can just give your entire board Myriad. And that just means a lot of damage, a lot of extra creatures attacking, and then probably a guarantee, right, on Goro-Goro's ability to make sure enough hits everybody. And then playing, I consider them to be a pair, although they're a little bit different. They kind of fulfill the same role in Flame Shadow Conjuring and Molten Echoes. Molten Echoes, for 4 mana, you pick a type. Anytime a creature that type comes in, you get a copy of it with haste that you lose at the beginning and the end step. Again, great for all of our dragons to come in and get a copy of it hasty, so it can be used for Goro-Goro's first ability, and then the real one can still be a menace on a future turn. And then Flame Shadow Conjuring does something very interesting. It just requires you to pay a red mana to do it, which, again, I don't think we mind having either of these either way, because they're creating a temporary copy of that thing that will fulfill Goro-Goro's ability to hit and get us that 5/5 Dragon Spirit. But I've said it before on the show, I'll say it again. No deck's ever complete. It's my version 1.0 shot at Goro-Goro, and I think going into testing, there's a couple things we can consider. First, Do we want to look at copying creatures more? It's not really something I had looked into, but it could make sense. Something like Orthion's really great for that. 2 mana to just copy a creature and do that temporary copy. 9 mana to make 5 copies of something. Just a very interesting ability. I just didn't pursue it all that much. Something like Great Terrain Heist is here just to remind you of the fact that you can take multiple combats. And if you have any way to give creatures haste, the dragon spirits you make on the first combat would have haste and be able to attack on the second combat, which I think is kind of interesting and something you can consider. And then the last, just making temporary tokens, was something like Rite of the Raging Storm. This is an enchantment that on everybody's upkeep gives them a 5/1 elemental named Lightning Ranger with trample haste and goes away at the end step, and just your opponent's Lightning Rangers can't attack you. But just a very interesting card, right? Should potentially guarantee maybe you get the Rager through at one person every turn, but it would depend on the board state. But again, the thought there is just making these temporary creatures that are having a higher chance to hit. But let's get into our playtest. Remember, the goal of playtest on our channel is not to find magical Christmas land. It's not to just show off our best plays, but it's to get ourselves in some game scenarios and understand how do we set up our board state and work towards our goal. Here we're keeping a 3-lander with Arcane Signet. There's the Shield, Scourge of Valkis, and then Nogi. Nogi is a card that can reduce dragon spells by a little bit, and then if it attacks while we control 3 more dragons, it gets to become a dragon for the turn. Here we'll put Drowned Catacomb in first. It's the kind of odd land out here. And we'll get the Arcane Signet in. Now turn 3 here, we have Goro-Goro. Play the Rakdos Signet into Goro-Goro was my thought. The reason here is because now I have enough mana for Goldspan next turn, which would get me at least 1 Dragon Spirit, but we can see what we get. Because my thought here is Goldspan. Goldspan attacks and makes the treasure, and then on turn 4, I'm sure we can find somebody in the air to hit to make that Dragon Spirit. Because remember, it's just if a creature that came in this turn, right, they'll damage, and since Goldspan, that's great. And now, the nice thing about Goldspan is those treasures are sacking for 2 mana instead of 1. So now we're at 7 mana, giving us a lot of options. We could, play the shield and get it attached. We could get something like Skittles involved this turn. 6 mana to play it and give itself haste, right? So we could have another attacker to hit this turn. I like something like Kolaghan. We can dash it from our hand, meaning it comes in with haste and then returns back to our hand. That means it can basically always be coming in this turn and attacking, right? But instead of just dashing Kolaghan, we could sack the treasure and play Nogi and then reduce that dash by 1 to bring Kolaghan in. Again, attack with Goldspan, make the treasure. Attack with Kolaghan, so they both get +2/+0. Kolaghan will end up making us a Dragon Spirit. I didn't mean to shuffle. That'll make us a Dragon Spirit. Now that's more dragons, right, for the purposes of Nogi's ability. And this comes back to our hand. And now as we get into our next turn, right, we have this dash loop if we want to keep doing it. I don't mind the idea of trying to get warriors in with infantry shield just to like continue to maybe get more hits at somebody every turn. I mean, it's 5 mana to deploy, which would take probably most of our turn. We still have 2 mana left, I guess. But we could put on something like one of the dragon spirits and get 6 warriors, right? But I kind of like the idea of just keeping to get in dragon tokens so we can present more of a threat in the future, especially with something like Kolaghan, right? Buffing our whole board for all the creatures that have attacked. Because if you think about it, if I dash Kolaghan in here, and all 5 of these attack, Nogi becomes a dragon. They all get +4/+0 because Nogi's not going to be a dragon at the time it attacks. Now they're all just really hitting our opponents hard at most of them. These guys being 9s, these guys being 8s, and this guy being a 5, right? Or sorry, an 8 because of it buffs all of them. Now we're just attacking hard, right? Really hitting into our opponents. We could use the treasures, right, to get down infantry shield for the next turn. But I think you can kind of see why stuff like this is good. This is funding us the mana. And these dragon spirits are going to become a threat, once you start getting them down and getting them viable. Yes, Goro-Goro has an haste enabler, and it's good to remember that in the back of our mind if we can get enough mana in to make it viable. But here on playtest number 2, we're keeping a 5-lander with Shivan Devastator and Rivaz. Rivaz is a really fun creature that can tap for mana. We can only use the mana to cast dragons. And then we can actually cast dragons back out of our graveyard. So it's pretty nice to be able to kind of give us that option. Curse Mirror is a very interesting card in this deck. So it can enter as a copy of any other creature on the battlefield except it has haste. So it could be a way to get in, right, a creature with a dragon, right, and attack with it in order to get us its trigger. See, here I was thinking Shivan Devastator. But if I go Rivaz, I get more mana for next turn. Give me 7 mana for next turn right now. What do I use it on next turn? Probably not as much. I was thinking just Shivan for 3 and getting the 5/5. Is it something like Rising of the Day and try to go deeper next turn? If I rise this turn, next turn I play a land, play Rivaz. It has haste, right? And I've got 4 mana for the Regent or the Devastator, and I'm just getting more value in that way. It also would depend on, right, what I draw. I was gonna say, or I Rivaz this turn, and then next turn I have 7 mana. Go Devastator for 2, and then something like Scavenger. Well, Scavenger Regent wouldn't have haste, right? So let's do that. Let's do the Rising of the Day this turn. Satoru can attack if we want to. And of course we see Dragon Tempest the next turn. No, that stinks. It's exactly the opposite of what we wanted to see. A nice free sack, or right? A nice free haste outlet. But I guess we'll go Scavenger, just attack and get that Dragon Spirit. It kind of stinks. That's kind of not what I wanted to do, right? I would have loved to have seen that Tempest first. But that is what it is. 7 mana here. Remember, 2 of it I can use for only for Dragon. So I'm thinking Tempest plus Twin Flame Tyrant. It comes in with haste, deals out some damage. It can attack, getting us another Dragon Spirit. That Dragon Spirit can attack 2. Again, we're feeling good here. We're starting to get the dragons. We're starting to get the things under our control. Cursed Mirror feels like a great copy of Twin Flame Tyrant this turn to quadruple damage, right? And then go 1, 2, 3, 4 into Shivan Devastator, right? It now has haste because of this. We've got 2 creatures this turn, and we've got a bunch of other creatures. We're quadrupling damage, so this feels like a great combat to just get in, especially with our Spirit Dragons, and just deal some big damage to our opponents. Let's get into playtest number 3. I think that was a pretty good, line there to finish out the turn with. 3-lander with the Talisman. There's the Crucible to buff our dragons. Goldspan and Lathless aren't bad. The only downside to Lathless, right, is it won't get the tokens off of the, obviously, tokens from Goro-Goro and Satoru coming in, but that's okay. I think it's still worth what we're trying to do here. I'm thinking it's just Goro-Goro, because now we have a dragon like Kolaghan that can dash in. We have Goldspan. I'm kind of thinking Goldspan here just to get that treasure, and it'll get us the Dragon Spirit. Come to our next turn, 5 mana, 2 of it. We want to use the treasure off of Goldspan. I wouldn't mind digging off of something like Ponder, but I feel like if I play the Crucible, I've only got 3 mana, which makes me feel like something like Ponder would make more sense, or we wait till main 2, right, and or we wait till main 2, right, and play a dragon after that. But Crucible, to me, presents a better attack here. Attack, make a treasure, because now I have 5 mana, right, because of the 2 treasures. I guess it just sets me up for next turn, or I do something like Thundermane. I think it just better sets me up for this next turn. Because now, see, if I Thundermane, it doesn't have haste. Kolaghan, I can dash in. For 5, I've got 4 mana left. I've got one thing giving me a spirit this turn, but it's also buffing all of our creatures, right, because of its ability. Cool, could be interesting, right? Giving up a couple of dragon spirits to get a dragon in from our hand. guess we could put something like Felwar Stone down and just attack. We're getting another Dragon Spirit this turn. Right, they're all getting a buff. We're getting another treasure, so we're just lining up this mana. Maybe we get something like Lathless just in this turn. Well, or do we wait and get Lathless in next turn and try to give it haste? I think that makes more sense, right? 6 mana, 12 mana total. Oh, of course we see something like Silumgar. Sorry, we dash that, so it's back in our hand. These guys make it 11. So we're just 1 mana off going like both of them and giving them both haste, right? I guess Silumgar doesn't have to attack for its ability, so that might even not be bad either this turn. Playing those two, dashing this in, getting another dragon, potentially taking out some creatures right before we pick this back up, another treasure, even though let's see, we got rid of those 3. I think that's not a bad line, right? Giving up the treasure, giving up the getting the -1/-1 specifically could be nice to take out somebody's creatures. Maybe put 1 or 2 dragons at somebody to knock out a bunch of their tokens, or put 1 at their, them to knock out a bunch of their 1/1s, just depending, right? But now we're dealing with a lot of flying threats in the air. Now Silumgar's sticking on the battlefield. 7 mana, 9 with the treasure. I think we just rinse and repeat. Kolaghan, getting another dragon. I think we're just in a good spot. It feels a little bit weird because we didn't see as many of the temporary creatures that turn, but again, I think that's what makes Kolaghan so good, is that dashing in, always counting as a creature that came in that turn for the purposes of your, for your dragons. 2-lander with Arcane Signet. We see Skittles, Kolaghan, and Flame Shadow Conjuring. So kind of interesting. We'll see what we can turn this into. There we see Frostcliff Siege, a way to give all of our creatures haste. There's Sarkhan, which can add mana for a dragon. Promised by Sarkhan this turn, I have no way to protect it, right? So maybe we go something like Goro-Goro. Now we're at 5 mana, right? Just dash the Kolaghan in, right? End up with the Spirit, comes back to hand, but that's okay. I still think it's worth the risk. Now I go Sarkhan into I could go Sarkhan into a 4 mana dragon, but we don't have one. I could just, again, Kolaghan again. Gainax could set up a future turn of getting some treasures right off of the Kolaghan, but I think we just do the Kolaghan again. Right? Get the value and keep it going. Yeah, especially when it's tacking with other dragons. I would love to have seen another land to go like Sarkhan into something. Problem is, if I +1 Sarkhan, then I'm just out the mana, right? Do I take the turn to set up with something like Gainax, right? Take the attacks. And then now 6 mana, 3 with Sarkhan would make it 5. So now we could start getting the Kolaghan in, right? Getting a treasure, attacking, getting the Spirit and another treasure, right? So now we're netting mana as we're doing this Kolaghan loop, and just getting ourselves into better dragons, right? 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 mana. Play the Siege for what? Haste? That gets me 2, so I'm at 8, 9, 10 mana. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 mana. 2 of it can only be for dragons. If I do this, the answer is 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mana only, and 2 of it only being for dragons. I guess we could get something like Star Mounts in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right, getting us that treasure. Then not much to do there, but you still attack, get another Dragon Spirit, get another treasure, and then I think we're kind of on our way. This one felt a little bit more awkward. I think to me the concepts there, it's just trying to find these hands. There's probably the argument to keep the Kolaghan dash loop going to get these dragons to have, Kolaghan's ability when they attack, right? Making them bigger and bigger, right? 6, 7, 8, 9, each turn probably makes the more sense to me than playing the star mounts there. But I think this is why playtests are important, is to run yourself through your paces, understand what your deck's trying to do, so that as you get into a game and you're getting those external factors, you know what to do. But I'd love to know, what do you think of a Goro-Goro down in the comment section below. It's an interesting deck. I like the idea of the kind of Grixis hasty dragons. I'd love to know what you think. If you're playing Grixis dragons, I'd love to know who your commander is, and I will catch you on the next one.